Hello everyone, it's Tech Mode here, and in case you are trying to improve your video recordings, let's say you recorded your video using your phone and you're trying to enhance the video to fix a few things, or you don't really know what you need to do to improve your videos, this tutorial is going to be just for you. We're going to be using DaVinci Resolve, and I'll show you how to improve your videos, how to correct your video, and then we'll apply a grade. So we're going to fix things like the skin tone. I'll also show you some tips on how to blur the background and how to overall improve the quality of your videos, especially if you're recording using your smartphone. So I have DaVinci Resolve running. So I suggest you do the same with your clip, and let's go. So the first thing I want to do is to show you the before and after, because hey, it's nice to see a before and after comparison. So if I go over to I'm on the color tab. To get on the color tab, just click on your workspace and go to show page, and you can just make sure that you're on color, or at the bottom here, just click on the color tab. So yeah, so we're in the color tab. If we click on this bypass all color and fusion, this is the original clip. You can see how it is. It's very bright. There's a lot of texture on my skin. If I zoom in, a lot of texture on my skin. The lighting is too bright. There are things that are a bit distracting. Even though the camera is trying to blur out the background, it's not doing the best job there. So if I turn this on, you can actually see how it looks like now. So let's see what's going on here. So we first have a vignette, and the vignette is around here. So if I go over here on the node in the color page, hit Control D, that will disable that vignette. So you can see without vignette and with vignette. All right, so let's clean everything. So here I have a cleanup section. If I hit Control D, you can actually see I'm adding a sort of very faint effect. Now, the thing about color grading is you don't want to do too much. Just a little bit is good enough, and it goes a long way. So I've disabled that, and we'll actually work backward. So I have here refinement, and this is for the skin. I should right click my node label and call this skin retouch, because that's a better name to call this. And for the skin retouch, I'm just playing around with some softness and adding more color around the skin. Now, if I do this and move my clip, let's just move to another position on the clip. Let's say here, like that. Yeah, okay, this is a good position here. If we disable the skin, hitting Control D to disable that node, you can actually see I'm adding more color around the face. Now that's super great. So here, I have a node without a label. That's not really my style. I like giving my nodes a label, right? And here we actually have a grading, and this is where we give our image a particular look. Now, some creators put the grading at the end, but I just like to put it here. And if I get rid of that, you can actually see the color, and this one has some of that, focus here. And next, this is where I apply some basic corrections. So this is where I look at the scope and dial down some regions or areas that are too bright or too dark. Now, the key thing about a dark place is you're not trying to make everything black. You still want to have details in your dark places. And I'll show you how to know if your image is overexposed or underexposed. I'll show you how to do that and read that using the graph. And then finally here, this is my favorite thing to do, is to apply a nice little blur in the image. So if I hit Control D to disable that, you can see I'm actually getting rid of those distracting things I don't like about the curtain. And if I had a very beautiful curtain, I wouldn't mind, I'll just leave it. But just to increase the depth of field, you can see we're blurring this. And this is our before and this is our after, right? So what we're going to do now is to just create a new, and I'll aim to create a different separate look from this. So what I'll do first is to right click and click on a new timeline. And I'm on the edit page, and I'll just call this edit_2, and I'll hit create. I'll just get rid of some stuff here and move my laptop a bit closer, because this is where we're about to begin. All right, so also to make everything look like your screen, I'll go over to workspace and reset UI layout. So on the edit page, you should see two windows. One is your source view and one is your main viewer. Basically, this is to view your clip. If I double click on this, it's going to just load the clip, and I can just drag things around and select any section I want. So I'll just hit the letter I to select this endpoint, and I'll drag here and hit O to select the out point. So if I drag this to my timeline, if I just drag the edit here, this is going to just bring that section. So I can go to my workspace, and if you are using a vertical video resolution like I am, I can just click on this expand view and it's going to shift everything to the right. I believe this is only available in DaVinci Resolve 20. So if you're not using 20, you might not be able to get this option, but you should follow along just fine. So now that we have this, I'll just get the entire view. I'll just drag this here, and I'll prefer proxies. So a proxy file is a lightweight file that is stored in memory. It's much more faster to work with a proxy than the high quality video. To create a proxy from your videos, just right click and go to proxy media and say generate proxy media. This will generate a proxy file, and you can use that proxy file. It's much more faster, and when you're done, you can export using the high quality file. So let's just test this clip by just playing it. I'll use this keyboard shortcut L. And I just want to have just 10 seconds of this clip because finally I can create a look and use that entire look. So I'll select everything here, Control/, select this and hit delete. And I can just expand this a little bit so that I just have a very short section to grade like that. So just this section is enough for me to grade this image. So to fix, and let's start. So I'll go over here to the color tab right here and click on color, and this should bring us over here. I'll get rid of the gallery, and I'll also click on the clips so I can have a little more space, and go to the workspace at the top and the page navigation. I'll just click on that so that we just have more space to work with. So the first thing we want to do is to balance this image. What do I mean? Well, sometimes when you record, it might actually be very bright, right? So it might be too bright. For example, you have a lot of lights coming in and it might be too bright. So first thing you want to do is to balance your image by, reducing the brightness and, increasing the shadows to be. So that's the essence of the balance. So this first node, I'll right click and I'll change the node label to balance. So, but how do we know when things are overexposed or underexposed? Underexposed? Well, I'm glad you asked. Here, if we click on the waveform, you can actually see this parade over here, and I'll just drag this to the right and zoom out on my video a bit because I'm not using it now. So we have the RGB parade. Now, because I'm wearing a blue shirt in this video, we can actually clearly see that our scope here is telling us that we have more blues in this video file. That's great. One quick way to find out, what's wrong is to click down and click on waveform. So the waveform is again going to show you what's going off. Now, ideally, you don't want your highlights. Your highlights are here, right, on this chart. If it's above this 1000 line, it means overexposed. And if it's below 0, right, or it's just barely touching 0, it's a good exposure. So based on this image is fairly exposed, but I still want to adjust this a little bit. So first thing I'll do is to click on this, and you don't have to, but I just like getting rid of the colors because I want everything to be balanced. So I want this to be around 900 for the gain. That's the highlights. And then I'll go over to the gain and I'll just drag this down a bit like that. So if I drag this here, you can see that's too bright. It's over 1000. So I'll just drag this here to make sure all our peaks are below that 1000 mark, which is a good exposure. Now that's the gain. It just means your exposure or brightness. So lift means your dark parts, your shadows. So I'll go over here to this button dial, this knob, and I'll just drag this, push this up a bit. So if I push that down and this is below 0, it's over exposed. You can see there's too much shadow here. I'll just drag this a bit and push this to the top, and it's not too dark, which is good. So, and then gamma is going to be for the skin. So I'm not going to be messing with that right now because I'm going to use a separate node to begin affecting those regions. So, but for the gamma, I'll just drag this here, and this gamma is just going to try and work on the skin. I'll just push this down a bit, and that's okay. So this is our before and this is our after. You can see this very subtle difference because it's a good, clip. What I also like to do for the balance is to use a curve, and on this curve, this gives us access to the red, green, and blue channels. So I'll click almost at the end in here and drag this down to just add a little bit of more darkness, dark areas, and just make sure this is not going, below 0. And here at the top, I'll just push this up a bit, just drag this down a bit like that. So here should be slightly down, and here should be slightly up like that. And that's great. That's a good, curve right there. I think I might have darkened this a bit, so I'll just push this back up like so. And I think I like it like that, somewhere around here. So we use the curve and we use the color wheels here to add some correction, right? One good thing about the color wheel is if I don't, this blue might be a bit much. So if I click the B channel or the blue channel, I can actually drag down some of that to get rid of some of the blue. Do the same thing here as well. So I'm selecting just a specific channel. And just by getting rid of the blue channel, I'm getting a bit of warmness around the skin. So that's a cool way to fix skin issues. All right, so I'm going to be done with my balance here. So what do we do next? Let's work on our skin tones. So with our balance node selected, I'm going to hit Alt S to add a serial, and I'll right click and go to enable and node label and call this the skin. All right, so now that we have the skin, how do we select the skin tones and get an average value of my skin tone? That's a great way to improve the skin. So I'll click on this qualifier, and what this is going to do is to create an eyedropper tool where you can select here, here, and here, just some various positions around the face. Now that we have selected those colors, I can go to the color wheel here, right? And I could just lift and add some colors here. So I'll add a little bit of, cool color here, some cool purple, just a little bit, and make this slightly warm like that. So I'm dragging some gamma on the skin. So you can see it's improving the skin just by doing that a little bit. And I'll leave this here. So for the highlights, I'll just drag this towards cyan a little bit, and that's the skin. So again, if I hit Control D and disable that, and I might need to just zoom in a little bit on the face so you can see this. So if I hit Control D, you can see what it's doing there. I'm just adding a little bit of information around my face. So what I can also do is to play around with the brightness around here. So I'll go back to this space that has all the colors, and I can just bump up this color like so to make my face have a little more highlight. So that's my retouch here. I can push this up, I can dial this down a bit. It's only affecting the face region. And over here, we just dial this down a little bit like that. Not too much because I'm wearing a P cap, and we can actually see some details around the forehead. This is good. So I'll leave the skin like that. So now that we've worked on our face and we've balanced the image, let's work on that background over there. Now, if I drag this clip towards the ending, I'm not really moving too much. So this region here, I'd like to add a little blur around this region to just hide some things and make it interactive. So to do that, I'll hit Alt S again to create a serial node. All right, so now we have that. Let's right click and let's call this depth, because I want to just add a little bit of depth of field around here. So what I'll do is to go over here to the power window, and I'll click on the pen tool on the power window, and I'll just create a nice little selection around myself. So I'll start from here and just do this, just a nice little selection here. I think I'll just go down here, and then I'll go around and close this selection. So now that I have this, I can just rotate it a bit, and then I can move these points up and up like that a little bit. And what I can do now is to blur out this shape. So anything that's within the confines of this shape is going to be blurred out. Basically, if I press this button to invert, I'm actually inverting myself. So I just click that to push this back. And now I can go to the blur, which is over here, and I'll just push this up a bit. And you can see it's actually blurring everything, right? So if I go back to that qualifier and hit this, I'm actually blurring the background now. So I inverted that. So let's go back here And we can add more radius to, blur out that out. So I'll just think this value here is fine. So again, if we hit Control D, that's the before and this is the after. So now we've added a depth. What are we going to do now? Let's add a general, let's fix the overall softness of the image, right? Let's fix that and then we can add a grade. So here, I'll hit Alt S again. So for here, let's create a node label and I'll call that the look. So this is where we will actually grade after we've balanced our image. So for the look, let's get back to our color wheels. And this is where you can define a kind of look. Now, a good look is to use two colors that are contrasting. So a warm versus a cool look, or an orange versus a teal look. That's going to help you when you have contrasting colors. So I'll think about a warm look for my shadows, a cool look for my shadows, and a warm view for my highlights. That's the look I'm trying to, reach here. So for the lift, which is the shadows, I'll try to move towards cool. So if I just drag this to the right, you can see how that's a bit much, but I'll just move this towards purple like that. And we can hit Control D to deselect that. So you can see how that's looking right now. So I believe that's a bit too much. So I'll just drag this down a bit like that. All right. So for our gamma, I'll leave the gamma alone. But for our gain, which is our highlights, I'll try to make it a bit warm like that. So I'll move towards orange like that. All right. So I think that's a good value. So if I disable that, you can actually see we have that warm look, but it's giving the entire image this pink tone I don't want. So to fix that, let's go over here to here we have the temperature. We can do a lot of things here. We can drag the contrast, add some tint. I'll just drag the temperature down a bit to about -10. And let's go to our curves. So now this blue, right, this red is dominating here. So I'll click on the red channel and I'll just dial that down just a bit like that. So by doing that, we're getting rid of the red. So I'll just push this back up just a little bit like that and just push that back a bit. So we're not getting some of that red. So for the blue, let's go to the green channel. I'll just add a point here and dial that green down a bit. We can push our greens up a little bit like so to have that little look. All this is subjective, depends on what kind of look you want to create. Now we have that look. So what I want to do is just fix the overall image. So if I hit Control D, that's that. You can see that subtle difference, nothing too complicated. Right, so that's great. So let's add more information. And this is going to be like the final, cleanup. So I'll hit Alt S and I'll call this a right click and I'll call this cleanup. And this is where I can do things like, soften the skin tone and do a lot. I could actually have done that on the skin here. In fact, if I go back to our wheels, I could actually do that here, but I prefer doing that on the cleanup stage here. So for the cleanup, I'll go ahead and do something here, right? So this cleanup stage for the mid details, I'll set this to about negative, let's try 100, which is a very large value. And you can see it's softening the entire skin. It's getting rid of the textural details. That's not what I want. So it's a bit too much. So I'll set this to about negative 25, like so. And while we have some detail, we're not over softening the image. Now you can raise this up. It's also subjective. And on this cleanup, what I'll do is to go back here to our camera. I'll just click on this drop down and go to the motion effects, right? So I'll do an Alt S, like so. And over here, I'll add some temporal noise reduction. So I'll set the number of frames to 4. And motion random, I'll set this to large. And I'll set this to beta. Now, some of these are pro features. If you try adding noise reduction using a pro feature, it'll ask you to buy the original version, the paid version of DaVinci Resolve, which is not what we want to do. So just by looking at this, right? So we've gone from this to this now, right? We've added some softness, balanced our color, improved the look, right? So we can go back to our balance. Let's say, for instance, we just want to make this slightly darker. All we need to do is to go to our YRGB and darken this a bit to give it some kind of nice little look. So, but I'll just set this back here like that. And let's go ahead and just play this. Now, if I try to play this, it's going to be exceptionally slow. So, but I'll just move this around and just see how this looks like. So this is before, after, before, and after. Again, before. You can see how that look is. We just added a nice little look and improved our video by adding some focus. Now let's do a vignette as the last step. And a vignette is going to create a nice little boundary around the image where we can add some, light effects. So after this, I'll hit Alt S and I'll right click and add information on that node label. So, and what I'll do is disable some of these clips, all of these clips. I hit Control D to disable that, right? And I'll just enable just this one, clip 7, and right click and say node label. That's not how to spell vignette, but I'll manage. So let's go to the power window, which is this window with the oval shape. Once we've done that, let's add a circle. This will add a circular mask. I'll just zoom out and expand this till it becomes quite large, like that. I think that's okay. And I'll just drag this edge here to make this into a nice little oval, like that. I'll also increase the softness, like that. So what I want to do now is to add a color around this vignette. So I'll just go over here on the curves, click on the dark section, just push that up towards the dark section. So I'll just drag this curve down. And I'll click on this and push that as well. Remember, we're actually adding that effect here. So let's add a color so we can easily see this. So I'll just go over here and push this color like so, like that. And we can go over here and darken this. So if I drag this down, we're darkening, right? And what I want to do is to invert the mask. So I'll go over here, back to our power window and click on this. And this is going to create that vignette around the edge of the video. And if you go back here, you can just slide this down a bit, to get rid of that, like so. Or we could use this section here at the end and just drag that down, like so. You can actually see how it's changing that. So we have a purple, nice purple looking vignette. You can change it to any color you want. That's not a problem. Just go over here and we can add the softness. Like so. If you drag this here, sorry, not that one. This is the softness, the one with the red. So we can drag this, make that fall out here, or we can drag that out. And you can see how harsh that is. So I'll just drag this, push that like so. And we can expand this if you don't want that to be too much here, like that. So just a subtle little effect. And with that, we can bring back everything and see how it looks like. So I'll select everything and hit Control D. Just to bring all our effects back. Actually, notice here on the balance, I don't like how this, this looks here. So if we go over to the balance and hit Control D, so that's not where we're doing that. I believe it's on the skin. All right. So we can just reduce that a bit. So if we go over here to our curves, we can select a specific channel or here, and we'll just dial this down like that. I'm just looking at the wheels as I'm dialing down and pushing this back up like that. Like so. Yeah, so I think I like it like that. All right, so the vignette might not work for me, so I'll just hit Control D to disable the vignette. And I think that's awesome. That's good. Now we're losing some of our details. So I'll just reset this. So to reset, you can just click this arrow and to reset everything back to the way it was. So I'll go to our balance. And you can see I'm making decisions, changing things, bringing them back like that. I think this is a nice little dramatic look. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. So when we're done, all we need to do now is to go back to our page. I'll do Shift 4. So we're now back on the edit page, and this is what we have. So we can click this, disable or enable those corrections, and this is how it looks like now. All right. Again, if you feel some colors are too much, we can always go back. I'll go to Workspace, Show Page Navigation, and here on the skin, I'll just zoom in a little bit like that. So on the skin, if we go back to the wheels, we'll actually have a saturation option here. We can just dial this down like so. And we can push that up back there. So you can see the areas it's affecting like that. Okay, guys. So yeah, that's how you can create a nice little look for your, let's get back here. That's how we can create a nice little look, improve your videos, add some special noise reduction, and improve the quality. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next tutorial.